Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Welcome to my show. Well, talk about chaos. About 2 months ago, we all got hit with kind of a 1-2 punch. We've got the pandemic followed by, a shutdown that really crippled our economy, and all of these great companies had to figure out how to work from home. And as a CEO myself, you think you know your team, and then everybody works from home. You find out who's strong when they work from home and who struggles. To talk about that is a leadership expert. She's nationally known, Dr. Rachel Headley with Rose Group International. Doctor, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I know from doing my homework on you that you and I are a lot alike, that we kind of like chaos. I came from the news business. Plan? What's a plan?
Hey.
You just cover the news. As a student of chaos and somebody who enjoys it yourself, are you fascinated by this pandemic and what it's done to companies?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about the pandemic is that it's affecting everybody. Usually when we look at trends across industries, we see that financial sector is struggling, or perhaps there's a lot of M&A in manufacturing, or we tend to see trends across specific verticals. In this case, it's everyone of every stripe. And so the tricky part about that is when we look across the US as a whole and look through your social feeds, you can really start seeing who is where on that chaos spectrum. Because those of us who love chaos, the biggest problem we have is someone told us to stay home and not to leave. So we don't like to be told what to do. We like to create our own reality a lot of times. But for folks that like routine, they actually didn't seem to have too much trouble at first, because a lot of times because they don't like change, they're just hoping things are going to snap back. And so maybe there isn't going to be a big change that they have to do. And so now that we're sort of transitioning from the sprint to the marathon, that it's starting to feel like we can't just be crazy and not have a structure at home and be too nuts. So what we're seeing now is those people that like order are starting to really start stressing out, hitting that wall about, oh no, this is actually a thing that we're going to have to face and transition. And so that's why we see everyone sort of reacting in all these different ways. It's really because your team hasn't changed who they are. It's just how they respond under stress that really makes their behavior change a little bit.
And you're a co-author of a best-selling leadership book. Of course, you did not write this during a pandemic, but a lot of the things that are in the book really apply today, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. In fact, we wrote the book, and I got excited about change when I came up through the aerospace industry and was on a NASA USGS mission as the operational science officer. And we had to go through big changes that were sort of dictated by the federal government. And that's when I really started seeing how people retreat to their corners. But then you got to figure out how to get them out of their corners and work together. And there really wasn't a style or an assessment or a framework that I could really bring to bear on that specific challenge. And so that's why I started getting nerdy about it. And then Meg, who you spoke to recently, she is an HR professional in strategic leadership. And so between us, I'm the project manager. So we have this really cool she's gold mining and I'm aerospace. So we say from underground to outer space, we kind of had to figure out the solutions to this. And it's widely applicable in so many situations, including this one.
I bet this is a part of you that you just can't turn off. When you meet somebody for the first time, are you already trying to put them in one of the categories that you outline in the book?
Yes, because, and not that I don't recognize that everyone's an individual and has very special perspectives and value. I'm one of those people that thinks I can learn from everybody. But what it really does for me is it allows me to understand who you are and your perspective much faster in a broad sense. So when I see somebody on social media being really negative or stressed out about the pandemic and how people are behaving or not, and then I can immediately say, okay, well, they're going through what we call the decline phase of change. And so it allows me to give them some grace, and it allows me to help understand what I can and can't do. And does arguing with them help, or does just letting them maybe talk about the future and how do you get through this change faster? And so it really helps me understand. I'm very team driven. Meg is very self-driven. And so I'm always looking to understand other people and where they're at and how I can help. And so I'm a fixer, what we call a fixer. So I love that part of it. And that's kind of why I see the world that way.
It's important for organizations to have different skill sets, right? So if I'm a CEO and I like chaos, but if every single member of my team loved chaos, we'd never get anything done, would we? Or it could be a dysfunctional company if everybody is exactly the same.
That's right. And that is really true. But the other important thing to remember is, of course, you can do anything you put your mind to. When you stepped out and started your marketing firm, you had to learn how to do some of those routine things that was probably very painful for a while until you were able to bring other team members on to help you. And so what we look at is some industries really attract different kinds of people though. So if you think about manufacturing, and if you go into a welding shop and you know that you're going to weld on aluminum for the rest of your life, well, that's going to be a very order tolerant person, and they're going to thrive in that environment, and you want them to be able to thrive in that environment. And so you don't necessarily need a bunch of chaos people on a manufacturing floor. And so it does kind of depend on the role you have and how you want to run your company. Are you a big enterprise firm like IBM, who they always struggle with innovation, right? Because they're too big and they have too bureaucratic and they have a hard time. And people like the startups are really chaotic, but a lot of them have a hard time gaining traction and being successful because they're almost too chaotic. And so you do have this interesting push and pull and need to have a little bit of a balance, but it kind of also depends on what industry you're in and how you want to be as a company.
I know you're a very accomplished speaker. In fact, you've given TED Talks before, which really impresses me. Who do you like to speak to, and generally, what's your favorite message?
Boy, that's a tough one because, I love people. I pretty much like all the people. I have to say one of my favorite ones was, I've transitioned from the aerospace industry into a much broader, we basically say, if you have humans in your business, we're your people. We want to work with you. So, but I did get an opportunity to speak in front of a geospatial crowd. So think about people that are flying drones and people that are flying satellites and that kind of thing. And I did get to speak in front of them, and I got to share with them this idea of understanding the chaos in your firm, how that resonates with you or doesn't. There's a lot of M&A going on in the big space of aerospace. And so I loved helping them understand, because I think for me, once you get your head around some of these concepts and start understanding why, Jeff might thrive in this environment, but Rachel might be miserable. And why is that? And how do we get them together? It's so much fun and strategic and sort of an intellectual logic puzzle that I really like. I loved an opportunity to go back. I gave a keynote in front of some old geospatial friends. And that was really fun because those are kind of my super nerd people, and it was great. So, but I do like everybody.
Well, tell us about the challenge / opportunity of leading a remote team. I think most people get into an office situation and they've got their bearings. They know how to lead a team in the physical world. When you're leading, extroverts who are suddenly depressed because they're not around people, what is that like?
Yeah, we talked about, we do a lot of CEO comfort calls right now, stay-at-home CEOs, right, that not really sure like how to wrap their head around things. And one of the things that we really see struggle is that people generally are either working 12-hour days because they can't get away from their computer, or else are sort of checking out and not being very productive, which are completely opposite challenges. And the CEO's like, I can't go to everybody's house and figure it out. And so what we advise is most people, regardless of which end that is, what they really are asking for is more structure. Because the people that need structure but they don't have it are kind of checking out. And the people that are going to be work, and work themselves to death to burnout don't have any structure either. And so if you provide some structure to say, listen, I understand that we have parents with small children at home. What I want you to do is put the computer away at 6 o'clock and focus on your family. Or we're going to have a stand-up every morning at 9 so we can connect. And so it's really important. There's so much chaos in every other way. Financial, if you have money in the stock market, if you have any kind of investments, if you have kids, like, oh, it's everywhere. So what can we do as CEOs to provide structure and manage expectations? So if you're one of those CEOs that's like, well, we're going to work from home until May 4th, and then we're going to make a decision. Well, tell your people on April 27th at 2 o'clock, we're going to send out an email that tells us what our next steps are. Because then people don't, starting at the end of April, going, oh, every time they get an email from you, they're like, oh no, what is this going to say? What's the big announcement? So be really cognizant of sharing as much detail, as much plan, as much structure, what your expectations are, what you really value about what they're doing right now. I've read, there's a great piece in Bloomberg about people getting burnt out. And, but I bet if those people talked to their CEO would say, don't worry, I get it. We know you're going to work hard, but we know you're stressing out. We don't want you to burn out. But the CEOs aren't really sharing those perspectives with their people. So more communication and more structure. Those are the things you really have to be focused on right now.
That's great. We're almost out of time, but I want to fire one at you because I know that there are a lot of marriage counselors who get divorced. And so knowing it all, you're a leadership expert. Does that feel like pressure to you? I mean, to lead a very powerful organization, the one that you developed, do you feel pressure that you got to eat your own cooking?
It is not ever as easy as you wish it was, right? Meg, my co-founder, she is self-driven and I'm team-driven. So often we have a challenge of, she's like, well, that client should just know that thing. And I'm like, no, we have to baby them and we have to help and so there's always a little bit of a tension. But the beautiful thing is once you understand this about each other, you can give each other grace. I can lean on her when she has, as sort of the thought leaders of the company, I can lean on her when I am not sure if I'm doing the right thing. And she always channels me if she's working with certain kinds of people because I have much more patience with some people than she does. So in some ways, it's actually very empowering to kind of have this insight. And to me, that's the fun part. I'm so excited to be able to just help people through it that we haven't really felt that way. It's really more of an opportunity than anything.
That's very cool. You're a great guest. We're going to go ahead and put your website up. Give everybody the domain name.
Yeah, domain name is rosegroupintl.com. So please come out and visit us. Our GM's contacts is splashed all over that. She'd be happy to connect with you and connect you with us. And we'd be happy to. I'm the team-driven one, so I never have enough connection. So always reach out.
Outstanding. Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. It was a pleasure to be here.
And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.